time to manage child illnesses or early drop-off or late pickup. Let me get this out of my way here. Families with more financial resources are more able to adjust their search requirements as their child grows. Just like most families, higher income families will focus on care that meets adult needs for their infants and toddlers, but they have the resources that can allow them to look now for their older children, their 3 to 6 year olds, for care that specifically meets what they believe is necessary for their children's development. Oops. Here we go. So we also know that non-standard hours of employment and irregular work schedules present challenges. So non-standard work hours would be evening hours, weekends. Irregular schedules would be work hours that are not the same from day to day or even from week to week. They tend to be those that pay less and have less flexibility in adjusting to family and child circumstances. Now, families with 2 parents can sometimes accommodate jobs with evening and weekend hours and changing work schedules. Maybe only one parent works, or if both work, they're able to stagger hours in them. So this is just, again, from national data. In a 1-parent household, the average amount of hours per week that parent is working when they're working is 39. And 9 of those hours, or almost a quarter of them, are non-standard hours. So these 1-parent households are working full-time, but a big chunk of that full-time is in non-standard hours, weekends or evenings. In families where there are 2 parents and both of them are employed, the parents average 23 hours a week when both parents are at work. And these hours include only 2 non-standard hours, just 8%. So they generally don't need care during non-standard periods of the day, unlike the 1-parent household, who is very often likely to need that, plus they are working full-time regardless of when those hours are. This is an interesting analysis that was done, again with national data. So low-income families, defined as families where the income is less than 100% of the federal poverty level, which, as you know, is very low to begin with. Most of those families have overlapping work hours. About a quarter of them, however, are able to schedule work hours to avoid both parents working at the same time. So clearly they are making decisions about when they go to work and how they arrange their work schedules based on things like cost of care and when those non-standard hours are that they are encountering in their work schedules. Higher income families, defined here as equal or above 300% of the poverty level, had almost every family where both parents were working had some overlapping hours when parents were at work at the same time. So at that income point, it appears that families are able to have parents work at the same time because they can afford fill-in care, or they have jobs with greater flexibility in work schedules. So they can manage that overlap with still allowing both parents to work, and there being times when both parents are home and both parents are not home. I'm gonna not say a lot about childcare quality. It's a big topic. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the overall dimensions of it. And quality is really those conditions, inputs, and processes that support healthy child development. And as we saw earlier, some children are in home-based care, some children are in center-based care, and systems of quality rating and improvement systems will identify those indicators of quality somewhat differently in a center-based setting versus a home-based setting. But as you look at those dimensions, you'll see that they are similar. And also the dimensions which are most closely related to healthy child development are similar. So I'll quickly go through that. So here are the dimensions or functions of quality that support quality in center-based care. And I'm not going to read them to you, but the ones that are starred, which have to do with the learning environment, the approach to supporting learning and development, and the kind of relationships that are established to support children and families. Those factors, those functions are particularly highly connected to child development, positive child development outcomes. That's in centers. When we look at what people look at for features of quality in home-based settings, what does the setting look like? What kind of learning environments are provided there? How does the provider and child interact? And then to some degree also family supports. You're looking there again at those factors that are most closely related to child development. Here they are. There's supports, oops, sorry, I went backwards here. Nope. Sorry, they are things like the intentional supports for learning in the environment. So the instructional planning, the structural supports, the home-based setting and the learning environments, and the strength of positive nurturing relationships between the caregiver and the child. So there you have child and family support factors and provider-child relationships. So you see both, not only is there a overlap or not congruence between what quality looks like in homes and centers, if you look at this macro level, but those are also the things in both settings that are the strongest impact, have the strongest impact on positive child development. So I'm going to turn quickly here to the things that you all want to talk about that are very specific to your situation there in New York City, is how do we support accessibility and quality? And how do we meet that definition of access that is family-based, family-centered, that says with reasonable effort, all families can find and use affordable care that meets the family's needs and supports their children's development. Well, first of all, we got to help families afford childcare. And some of that, I think I heard the Councilwoman Menon talk about moving to universal care system where everyone has access. Subsidies are currently, childcare subsidies are currently a strategy. They're underfunded. As you know, there are income tax deductions, there are scholarships that centers and providers to some degree, home providers might provide, multiple child discounts. Those are all strategies, but they're kind of working at the edges. So I'm very interested in Councilwoman Menon's approach to universal care, really making that affordable to everyone, and how you see that unfolding. That's great. Childcare supply. Councilwoman Menon also mentioned that as a big issue. Strategies that are used in the field across the nation, incentives, increases in subsidy and market rates, assistance in meeting regulatory requirements so that providers can become licensed and qualify for greater subsidies and attract families. Capital grants and loans, because you may need to improve the actual physical environment that you're offering. And then support for financial stability, helping providers, particularly small centers and family or home-based providers, run a business, as well as provide something that they feel is important, have they have a personal commitment to. Supporting providers to improve quality. And I know that Tara is going to be able to speak to this in detail. Training and technical assistance. Funds to help providers improve their equipment and supplies to provide a better learning environment. Offering mentoring and peer support. Being a childcare provider, particularly a home-based provider or small centers, you're kind of isolated. And the importance of connecting providers with each other and professional support is really important. And then finally, how do we help families locate and select care? States have websites now. They're all basically required to have a website. And I understand that Councilwoman Menon is also talking about portals for families in searching for subsidies and in looking for what options for providers they have that might meet those family needs. And then childcare resource and referral, which is generally a federally based system in I think all states to help families. And that is where I'm going to turn it over to Tara, because that is one of the functions of the daycare council. Tara?
Thanks, Sam. It's great to be with everyone tonight. I'm Tara Gardner. I'm the Executive Director of the Daycare Council of New York. I just want to share my screen. And it's a pleasure to be here with everyone this evening to share what's happening at the New York State and city levels, and then to talk about what's available in New York City as we speak. I will say that I am super proud to lead an organization that I used 27 years ago when I was seeking childcare for my child. I used the Daycare Council's resource and referral services to identify a provider who actually lived in my building that I didn't know about. And so it's an honor to lead the organization today. Just a little bit about the Daycare Council. We are a membership and advocacy organization that represents New York City's early childhood education and care providers. We support our providers and the children and families that they serve by advocating for policies and funding that make it possible for New York families to access high quality early childhood programs. And we seek support and assist in the development and operation of quality early childhood programs and services. So we're a membership organization. We have 102 member organizations that operate over more than 200 center-based programs across the 5 boroughs of the city, and they employ 4,000 New Yorkers, primarily women who are Black and brown. We also have affiliated providers who operate more than 2,000 home-based programs, and we work with more than 3,000 families to help them access care, to help them access, particularly during the pandemic, help them access childcare. Sorry about that. Help them access childcare support. And then we provide services and supports and technical assistance to the providers in our network. So what's available in New York City? And this represents, these numbers represent licensed and registered providers who are licensed and registered by the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So there are more than 2,850 daycare centers that are privately and publicly funded. There are more than 11,500 family child care providers who family child care and group family child care providers who provide services in their homes, and they too are publicly and privately funded. And then there are more than 1,600 school-age child care providers who provide before and after school programming and services. The vast majority of programs are DOE funded, and they include infant and toddler care programs, which serve families with children 8 weeks to 3 years old. There are 3K and pre-K programs for all, and those are center-based, home-based, and DOE school-based programs for 3 and 4-year-olds. There are Head Start programs, again for 3 and 4-year-olds, where families have to meet federal income guidelines. And these programs operate, there are 2 models. One is called the school year model, which provides 6 hours and 20 minutes of care per day from September to June. And then there are extended year programs that provide about 10 hours of care a day from year round, 12 months out of the year. In New York City, about 66% of the programs are school year models, leaving about 30% as extended year programs, which, as you can imagine, poses a challenge for families because most people work more than 6 hours a day. And when you factor in travel from the child care center to work and then from work to the child care center, it's often challenging for families to cobble together enough care to cover their working hours. So there are some support. New York State recently, I believe in August, increased the eligibility rate. It was at 200% of the state income standard. It is now 300% of the state income standard. This is eligibility for child care assistance and vouchers. So that means that as of August 2022, a family earning just over a family of 4 earning just over $83,000 a year is now eligible for assistance in covering the cost of childcare. And then the market rate, which are the costs, are now set at the 80th percentile of the prices reported by providers. I can share what they are currently. A market rate survey is currently underway, so these prices will change. But right now, in a child care center, and there are 4 ranges, and they're by age. So children younger than 1.5, children 1.5 to 2 years old, and then children 3 to 5, and then children 6 to 12. And so on a weekly basis in a child care center for a 3 to 5-year-old, it's the market rate, the average market rate is $325 a week. That does not mean that a center cannot or a provider cannot charge more, but the average rate is $325. And that is the rate that the subsidies are based on. So there are 2 types of subsidies. One is a child care assistance subsidy, and it's based on income that based on the state 300% of the state income standard and the reasons that a family might need child care. And recently, the state also what we call decoupled work hours from the need for care. So before late last year, families had to be working 17.5 hours a week in order to secure childcare. But now the number of hours that families work is not coupled with care. And that's for children 6 weeks to 12 years old. And if a child has special needs, a family can get child care assistance through 18 years old. And then there's the voucher program, which permits families who are eligible for subsidy to secure childcare outside of ACS's portfolio of programs, and that's for children 6 weeks to 13 years old, up to 19 with special needs, and it can be in home-based and center-based settings. And the voucher program has historically been very, very limited. And so I'm gonna transition a little bit to accessing care. So Sam mentioned that the Daycare Council is one of the 4 diverse organizations operating the New York City Resource and Referral Consortium, We partner with the Center for Hispanic Children and Families, with the Child Development Support System, and with the Chinese American Planning Council. Through this consortium, we're able to offer services in English, Spanish, Chinese, which Cantonese and Mandarin, and Haitian Creole. And this partnership has been in existence since 1989, and it is funded through the New York State Office of Children and Family Services. And like everything that the Daycare Council did, the broad, Daycare Council proper does, the New York City Child Care Resource and Referral Consortium is committed to improving the quality and availability and affordability of childcare in New York City, advocating for improvements in the profession by helping to develop policies that impact early childhood education and care. We promote a positive public image and perception of this field. It's not just daycare. It's not just, someplace to put your child while you work. It is early childhood education and social development, social emotional development, and engagement, and then promoting career pathways for those who are dedicated to this field, to educating young children. So what do? We make childcare referrals for families seeking care. We provide technical assistance and support to childcare educators and providers to help them improve their quality. We work with employers across the city who are trying to help their employees connect to childcare so that their employees can come to work. And again, we offer technical support and assistance to community organizations who work with children and families. And how do we help families? We answer questions about childcare. We provide information on how they can find quality care. We provide contact information for at least 3 licensed caregivers and other childcare services. So when someone calls us to find out what providers are in their zip code, we provide them with at least 3 licensed caregivers. It's many, many more than 3. We provide individual consultation. We dig deep with families to identify the type of childcare that they want. Do they want center-based care? Do they want home-based care? Do they want to be close to home or close to work, somewhere in between? Do they want to be close to their older child's school? So we ask questions to help families identify the care that they are seeking. We help families, we provide them with information on how to apply for subsidies and vouchers. And then we also conduct workshops and provide printed materials for families on a variety of child care topics. So here are the types of child care referrals that we make: infant toddler programs, preschool programs, school age programs. So that covers 0 to 12, essentially. Programs for children with special needs, early intervention programs, family and group family child care programs, so home-based programs, programs that offer care during non-traditional hours, on weekends, evenings, if they have early drop-off, if they're a provider who provides overnight care. We also support with summer camps, day camps, sleepaway camps, and camps for children with special needs. We help connect families to universal pre-K and to Head Start and early Head Start programs, private nursery schools, and we also help connect families who have the means to nanny services if they want someone to come into their home and provide care. Some of the things that are new, again, Councilmember Menon talked about the task force to build universal childcare in New York City, the Promise New York program, which supports the children of undocumented families to connect them to childcare. At the New York State level, again, we mentioned the increase in eligibility to 300% of the state standard, which means that a family of 4 making just over $83,000 are eligible for child care assistance. And then New York has instituted a program where eligible families can pay as little as $10 a week for childcare. And so the Daycare Council's priorities are to continue the expansion of 3K programs. I know we hear a lot in the news about the city not going forward with the expansion of programs, but we advocate for the expansion of 3K programs and making more extended day, extended year seats available, flipping that equation to 66% extended day, extended year programs, increasing the number of seats for infants and toddlers, which is also a focus of the city, and then building and sustaining a pipeline of early childhood educators, because it is incredibly hard. Our member organizations are having a hard time attracting and retaining qualified qualified teaching staff to work in their centers. And so we have to create the pipeline of young people who are interested in entering this field. And here are numbers for families to contact us for the referral service. The number is 888-469-5999. And then the number for the Daycare Council is provided on the screen as well. And you can contact Sophia Lopez or myself, and we will connect you to the right people on our team. And so that's a quick overview of what's available in New York City. And I'll turn it back over to Margaret.
Oh, thank you very much. Ty, did you want to handle the Q&A with Vanessa?
And Margaret, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 minute. I unfortunately have to jump off, but I'm going to turn it over to my legislative director, Brandon Jordan, who is on the Zoom, and he can answer any questions about my legislative package or any of the work that we're doing. And I really just want to thank you all so much for putting this forum together, and really excited to continue this conversation. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we appreciated your insightful information. And Vanessa, would you like to take over the Q&A session?
Hi there. Sorry about that. My sound just dropped from my phone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilmember Menon, and thank you to Brandon Jordan. I know that he will be able to answer any questions that folks have. Good to see you again. I know I personally really appreciated all of this information. As you can might be able to hear some trains in the background, I've got a little 2.5-year-old next to me, so we're going through this process right now. So for anyone who has questions, I'm vamping a little bit to give you a minute to think of to formulate your question. I know I sometimes get put on the spot, so please raise your hand, and we will call on folks in the order that your hand is raised. And I will take the prerogative of having the microphone right now and ask a question myself, if that's okay.
May I just interrupt before you do? For all of those people who would like to ask a question, please click on the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and then click on the raised hand function. Once you're finished with your question, if you wouldn't mind, go back to the raised hand function and just click it off. Thanks very much. Sorry, Vanessa, go ahead.
No, good key reminders, Peggy. I appreciate that. My question, my first question was for Dr. Stevens. I appreciated seeing that data, and I heard you say a number of times that it was national data, but I'm not sure if you got the chance to share a little bit about sort of where it came about and what brought you to this this space. What kind of was your interest and experience in this space?
Well, very quickly, and I have worked for many years actually with the New York City Child Care and Resource Referral Consortium. But my broader professional life was mostly in early childhood in research, working with community groups that are trying to establish a childcare system, also doing research on quality rating and improvement systems. I was involved in the pilot test of the Quality Stars New York program way back when. And I worked at Columbia University for several years, directing their early care and education research connections project, which pulled together research from all different fields that had relevance to the early care and education community. So I have for many years been in the early childhood field, I guess I should say, but not as a provider and not as a policymaker, but really more on the research side. For people who are interested, and I'll be happy to share the PowerPoint and my notes, but also includes at the end a list of the resources, the documents that I got, the different statistics from, that would provide you more details.
Excellent. Thank you. And then we can certainly distribute that information to anybody who's interested.
Okay.
I see Peggy's hand is raised.
Oh, okay. Thanks very much, Vanessa. I have a question for Tara Gardner. You were mentioning that you make a whole wide range of referrals based on what your clients' needs are. But on what basis does the daycare council make referrals to parents? Is it from a master list? And if it is, who gets on the master list? Just on what basis do you suggest centers or services to parents?
We have access to a database of all licensed and registered providers, be they center-based or home-based providers in New York City. So they have been vetted and meet the standards of New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene as it relates to childcare.
Yeah, it's just so if you're doing 3 or 4 referrals, how do you and what do you?
Okay, so we ask families, where do they want the service? Do they want it in their neighborhood, their home neighborhood? Do they want it where they work? So we can search based on zip codes, based on community boards, based on borough. There's a lot of different ways that we can search for providers.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rita, I think, was next.
I'm a former elementary school teacher. My children are very well grown, and so are my grandchildren. But this is new. This is in that next generation. And what I'd like to know is, when children go on to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, are they tested so that, and is there ever a comparison as to those children who were in developmental programs earlier, before pre-kindergarten, versus those children who were taken care of in the home? Is there any statistics on that?
So I'll answer, and then I don't know if Sam wants to jump in. My answer is, I'm sure that there is research on it. The daycare council does not dig into that area. We really work with providers on quality, meeting the Quality Stars standards, so that they can be highly rated as qualified programs. So Sam, I don't know if you have any information on the research.
Sure. And this is sort of where I spent a lot of my time, was looking at what was that what are we finding about what makes a difference for children, and does it sustain into the elementary grades? So here's one of, I'm trying to find my little take my hand down thing, but I'll work on that later. This minute, there I am. So there's a lot of research. There was a lot of experimental research early on, in the 1960s and so on, and early on into the latter part of the 20th century, that really was looking particularly at low-income families who did not have access, because at that time there weren't public preschool programs. There, if you were going, and in many cases there wasn't kindergarten, in some states. So it was really looking at how can we help families who can't afford private early education services support their children's development. So that's how Head Start got started, for example, and a number of other projects like that. One of the interesting things about Head Start, the Head Start results, they showed that children who were in Head Start were definitely more developmentally ready, so to speak, for their early grades in school, compared to children of similar backgrounds who hadn't had that experience. And that experience was a very rich experience with family support, as well as, a lot of developmental support in the learning environment in the Head Start programs. People began to worry when they saw those gains disappearing as children move forward into later elementary years and into high school and so on. And they didn't see the same kind of differences that they saw when the children first arrived into the school system. A point about that, of course, is early care and education is not an inoculation. It is a preparation for being able to take advantage of what is you have coming next in your developmental environment. And of course, that varied tremendously. It varies tremendously by jurisdiction, et cetera, et cetera. So people were worried. They were thinking, well, there really wasn't that much of a payoff, because they weren't seeing this in the longer term. However, looking now at adults who went through the Head Start programs, more of them finished high school, more of them are gainfully employed, more of them have higher incomes. Really, what we saw was something that was beyond teaching them school skills. A part of that, this is my own personal analysis. Part of it was, of course, the attention that the children got and how important learning was made for them in this environment, and because their parents wanted them to be in this program. I mean, it was, you had to apply. But the other part is that families got support in the Head Start programs. Families were helped to further their own the adults to further their own education, to find better jobs, et cetera, to learn how to support their child's development at home. So I think that what you saw in very high quality early care and education programs are what we think many, not all, middle class, middle income, higher income families can do on their own. They can help children have diverse experiences. They can make sure that they have opportunities and so on. And they have ability to access resources for themselves. So for sure, children whose families have less resources, and by that I don't imply that families that have lower incomes aren't doing everything they can for their child, but we know that a lot of the things that help cost money and time. So those things definitely make a difference. By making those experiences available to everyone, you're having helping everyone sort of reach a common place where they can continue to benefit. And I have to say, as a plug for the public schools, we now need to make sure that our public schools are ready to capitalize on those investments in early care and education.
Thank you. It's what I believed, and you are proving it. So thank you.
Welcome.
Have Boaz next.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. First of all, hello, my wife here, our family, our 7 months kid is here, Nelly. Hello. So first of all, we learn a lot. We learn a lot from this session. Thank you very much for the organization of Community Board Date. So we live here in the neighborhood in Upper East Side, and we have been in this process. It took us some time to find the daycare for Nelly, and I want just to throw a few buzzwords, and I want to hear what Tara and Dr. Stephens have to say about it. So first of all, what I feel is that in Upper East Side, the demand is higher than the supply, meaning that there are more families that need daycare for their kids than available daycares. So we started late. We are immigrants, we didn't really understand the process. We are new parents, and we didn't know that we need to start looking for a daycare when my wife was pregnant. So we started when she was in her parental leave, and people were like, now we are starting to look, are you crazy? Some a year ago. And, it was a surprise to us, but over 8 daycares were willing to put us in the waiting list, of course, after paying over $100 to be in the waiting list. So we spent a few $100 on those waiting lists. We haven't heard from many of them, but eventually we were lucky. We found a daycare in the neighborhood that just opened up. We are paying a lot of money, but we're not complaining. I work, my wife work, we don't complain. But the interesting thing about this daycare, and I don't want to mention its name, it doesn't matter, but it's a network, it's a chain, meaning that they have the same daycare exists in Philadelphia, in Georgia, in all over the US. They have like over 50 daycares around the US. And again, just trying to compare prices, I was calling my friends to check what's going on in Georgia, what's going on in Philadelphia. So on those places, people are paying, I don't know, $1,500, $1,200, and we pay, I don't want to say how much we pay, but it's over $3,000 for a month. And see the difference, the same, and it's the same syllabus, same everything. So wait list, the money that it costs. What else I want to mention? And again, the entire process to find those daycares. This is the first time I noticed that I didn't know that there is a number that we can call and someone will, Tara, this is great information. It's worth publishing it, I don't know, in social media, but this is totally new to us. Maybe even talk with the hospitals, tell them, listen, give this number to new to parents. What else I want to say? That's it. I mean, last thing. So there is another option for parents is to hire some kind of nanny, some kind of helper. But again, we are new here. We don't know if it's legal, not legal. We don't understand the rules around it. And people told us, listen, you need to be careful because then, they can sue. It's not. So maybe back to Tara, I don't know if your services provide something, what's legal, what's not. I think, but the bottom line, I think that the demand is higher than the supply. And I think that this is the first thing that needs to be addressed. I don't have a good answer, but maybe to reduce the regulation, maybe to allow more people because in the first year, again, I know that some people my wife will now want to push, but you don't need to be a rocket science to be a babysitter for a new, maybe you disagree with me, but I think that we can, I think that we definitely can deregulate a little bit and allow more daycares to open. Again, we are lucky. We knock on wood, we have jobs, we have money for now. And I feel bad for all those parents, all those mothers that are stuck and cannot move forward with their careers because they need to take a break for a few years until public school kicks in. Thank you very much for the time. And again, great session. Thank you.
I'll say thank you, Boaz. I will also say that COVID impacted our ability to market our services a lot. We historically are out in the world every day, 5 days a week, at hospitals, at any place where families are, sometimes at like a clinic. We're there and we're just now returning to that practice. And we will do, the consortium is working to market ourselves more so that families know that this support and assistance exists and it's free of charge. And we will help families find the care that they need. And I will also say that, citywide, and societally, I think COVID brought to light the importance of childcare. It brought to light the fact that many women had to leave the workforce in order to care for their children. And we need messaging that uplifts the profession as a profession and a professional option, because what we find is many of the providers can't afford their own family's basic needs because they're making so little money. And so, they've gone to school. Many of them have master's degrees. They have a teacher's license and certification. So it is like working in a New York City public school. And people tend to discount the service that's provided to babies and young children. So there's a lot of PR work that needs to be done on many levels.
Vanessa, I actually have a question for Brandon. Is he still on the call?
Yeah, he's
okay, great. The Robin Hood Foundation, as well as Columbia University's Center on Poverty and Social Policy, did a study. And what they found was that even in New York City, where the average income is $137,976, there were a lot of parents in that upper middle range, even though it's actually middle income for what the costs are living in New York City. They don't qualify for subsidies or tax abatements. They really have problems being able to pay for any type of quality childcare. I commend the council member for moving forward. I think it's the first step to look at universal childcare and do whatever we can for our more financially challenged parents, but middle income parents are challenged as well. And I'm just curious as to whether or not Julie has looked at this, what next steps might be, if Tara kind of deals with it, or Dr. Stevens knows something, because I think that that's also another issue that really has to be addressed.
Look, I definitely agree. And I think it's notable that today the U.S. Department of Labor released a brief on childcare across the nation. And just in the Bronx, infant childcare consumes about 47% of a family's median income. And here in Manhattan, it's 20.1%. About a fifth of their income goes to childcare. It's significant. It's real serious. It's significant, far higher than other counties across the United States. And when we were working on this package last year, we knew everything, the providers and just the funding issues, particularly accentuated because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. Parents who, as Boaz said, you look for different providers, and it's a job unto itself. It could take months and months and months. It's a challenge. And we know that the Universal Child Care Act is just the first step in doing that. And we're not done. It's not like we've passed this act and it's all done. The solution is finished. We're going to move on. That's not it. The council member is well aware and wants us to do more, not only in making sure that this legislation that now is law is still strong, it's still powerful, and we're going to hold the administration accountable to make sure this is going to work, but doing far more. I think the issue of providers and the issue of facilities and the cost in terms of real estate, what can we do there? We're talking to the partners in government to figure out sensible solutions. That's one component. And then another thing that you had mentioned was just the very incomes of people. Can they afford this childcare in the first place? And I'm sure, as you can imagine, there are a variety of factors: inflation, the availability of jobs, what kind of jobs are being produced in the market today, as well as the fiscal climate that our city is operating in. It's a lot of factors. It's a very complex place. I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all, but it's something that our office is clearly aware of, and we're going to work on this subject through legislation, through working with other people, even as mentioned by the council member. Other council members are coming up with ideas, and we're happy to work with them to really resolve this. So we view this accomplishment last year as first step, but we know there's far more to get up the stairs in order to achieve universal childcare.
But we appreciate all that's been done to date, and we look forward to a continuing dialogue. Thank you, Brandon.
Anytime.
I'd like to ask Tara a question. In terms of the clientele, do you find most of your clients are able to pay for daycare center care? And if so, what tends to be the range of costs that they can afford usually? And are quite a few of your clients unable to afford care at daycare centers?
It's a fascinating question, and I wish I had an easy answer for you. Most of the centers that we work with and or refer to have DOE funded program contracts. So they're not really charging families for care.
They're not charging what? I just missed that. They're not charging.
Not charging families for care because their programs are funded. I think those who are seeking home-based care often are the ones who are paying for care. Whether they are getting a voucher or some subsidy, they still have to pay a percentage of the child care. I would say that it's a fascinating question. I don't know if I've ever looked at exactly who is calling us for referrals and what income bracket they fall into. So it's something that I will go back to my team as a follow-up question too. I would say that most of our referrals are to the 3K, pre-K programs and to funded home-based programs. So cost is a factor, but it's not a prohibitive factor for a family.
Thank you. Thank you.
There we go. I'm sorry, I keep getting out of sync. Sahar.
Thank you. This is, by the way, amazing. So thank you all for putting this together. I just had a couple of questions. So the first one I had was that when you're recommending a center or any center to the clients, just wanted to know, like, I heard that you mentioned that, like, you look at the various components and, like, to recommend. Is there like kind of like one of them is for especially older kids, if somebody's looking for daycare, is it about whether they can teach a little bit to the kids? Like, as a parent, I mean, I have teenagers now, but when my kids were younger, I would always look into that if I'm not with my kids, the person who's taking care of my kids, are they able to maybe read books or kind of play those games that are more educational. Is
Mhm.
that thing that when you look at
You went on
Oops.
mute. Sorry, you put yourself on mute.
Yeah. So is that one of the criteria as well that you kind of evaluate when you're giving a rating maybe to a center? And
Mhm.
question that I had was just what you just mentioned about the subsidies or, something else that the family might be receiving. And what exactly is that? What does that entail? And why would they be receiving it? Like something for home care, because I just heard that you said people can be eligible for home care, but they have to pay, a percentage. So why are they eligible for the rest of it for home? Why are
Um,
they kids
okay.
over?
So a couple of things. I should have written down the first part of your, okay, the educational aspect of
I
it.
can repeat.
No, I get it. The educational aspect. So
Tara, can I say a little something about that? Because I know one of the things that the counselors, the parent specialists who work with families who call, and the packet, they send a packet out, at least I think they used to, and I think they still do, a packet of material that includes not just the referrals, but includes criteria or questions that the parent should ask or things to look for, because they're encouraging families to take charge of being able to identify quality. So there would be things that they would be looking for, questions they would ask, the same kind of things you're asking. How much time are you allowing the children to watch TV? That kind of thing. All of that kind of stuff. So things and safety things, things to observe, questions to ask. And I think that's one of the really important services that the CCR&R system provides, is it really is trying to empower families with information and the ability to really look and see what would work for their family by asking these kind of questions and really observing what's going on. So sorry, Tara, I just thought I'd throw that in.
thank you. You answered it in a better way than I would. And then as it relates to the subsidies, as more centers participate in the DOE funded birth to 5 and or Head Start programs, those costs for the 6 hours and 20 minutes are fully covered for them. It's those programs, home-based programs, that are not participating in the 3K pre-K models that tend to accept the vouchers and the subsidies. So it's just more based on where you're getting care. That makes you eligible for a subsidy or not. And your income rate up to 300% of the state standard, which is about $83,250 for a family of 4. If you make under that, and it ranges different for a family of 2, a family of 3, a family of 6, a family of 8, but we tend to use the family of 4 as the example. So a family's eligibility is based on their family's income and their family's size. And then the voucher will cover the market rate, the standard market rate, which, today a daycare setting for is $406 a week. But once they complete the survey and see, it's the median of what childcare providers are charging, it might be $600 in another 3 months or so, whenever the survey is released. So it depends on what the market is commanding at the time of the survey. Sahar, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it did. So what you're saying is that for a family, I'm just trying to understand that why would a family send their child versus have a caregiver coming into their own home?
So the city is not going to subsidize someone coming into your home. These
Okay.
are family-based providers who are licensed by the city Department of Health to serve 6 children or 8 children, depending on age at a time in their home. And so we call that home base because it's in a home, which happens to be the provider's home, not your home.
Providers home, okay,
Yeah.
got that. Great, thank you for both. And for the first one, I understood that it's, you guys are guiding the clients to ask the right questions, instead of providing the material, but you're providing them the source, like kind of like how to ask those questions to get the right answers.
And we never tell you you go to this provider. We give you the selection, and then you interview the providers and make the selection yourself. And then I think that you also had a question about services for older children. They are fewer and far between. Fewer providers do before care or after care or overnight care. So those needs are they probably take a little bit longer to help families connect, but we work in those areas as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you both.
Do you have any other questions for our speakers? Oh, yeah, Peggy?
Just a quick clarification, maybe Cameron can help. So if I understood correctly, you said that families were 1/5 of parents or 20.1% of parents' income in New York City goes to childcare, which is as you pointed out, that's well above the federal recommended 7% of income. However, we also just heard that, in many of the centers, their costs are funded by DOE. And then if people are low income, there'd be vouchers or subsidies, I guess, for home care. So what is the 20.1%? Is that, how do we get to 20.1%?
Brandon, yeah.
Hello, yes. So I'm not able to share on my screen, but this actually comes from the US Department of Labor. So the rate I get to 20.1%, that refers to New York County or Manhattan by itself. And that is a share of the median family income when it comes to infant center-based childcare prices. So that's where the specific number comes from. I'll share this link with the host, who I guess could share with everyone else.
No, I'm sorry, just so we know that the 20.1% is not necessarily what's coming out of people's pockets, but it's what the cost basis of the centers or the facilities, right?
Yeah.
Correct. So this has been the link there in the chat that everyone can see. You can access yourself and see from the Department of Labor in each different county. So this is referring as a share of it, not directly, of course, but just as a comparison. And then you can go within this map and then see based on different parts, there's infant child care center based, infant home based, and then break it by different counties. I believe even within the brief of now analyzing all of the counties in the United States, they cite the Bronx at a whopping 47%. Far, 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 far higher than any other county, I believe, in the United States. So that's just where that information would come from.
Thank you very much.
And I will share that it kind of theoretically makes sense that infant toddler care is the most expensive. And as children age, it becomes, because the ratios are smaller. So a provider can take care of fewer infant and toddlers. So the cost of care is more. And as children age, more children can be in the classroom. So the price decreases.
Thank you.
But it still costs too much in New York City.
I see Sandrea has her hand up.
It's right there. You can see her. See? Hi, Marie. Go brush.
Greetings all, and thank you so much for putting this together, both committees. This is so welcomed and needed for New Yorkers. I recall how difficult it was for me as a working parent. And I thank God for my mother. You know, it was very helpful. You know, grandparents. I was with Councilmember Julie Menon when she was proposing her bill down near City Hall at a presser and everything with all the council, you know, lined up and speaking about it. And so it's definitely great. My sons are adults now, but it's definitely, I have grandkids, so you know, this is a blessing for people because it's very difficult trying to work and manage your other bills as well as childcare. And you can't work without having childcare. So you either got it, sometimes you have to make a choice. And, you know, like I said, I was thankful and I was able to get my son into, both of my kids into daycare eventually, but it was such a hassle. You know, it seems like everything is much easier now, which is good, but it was just such a hassle. I was in the Bronx. I had to travel very far and be interviewed and bring in all your pay stubs and, you know, and I was working with New York City Police Department. So I was, you know, I was at a level. So my question is, for parents that do not, may not fit the criteria of affordable, what are the options for them? And my second question is, how is the campaign to get this word out about affordable childcare in New York City? Is the city partnering with religious organizations, schools, pediatricians, and so forth? You know, because a lot of people are not in the know that this is even happening. You know, there are some people, but there's people that are not in the know. So those are two things. Thank you.
Great question, Sandra. I mean, clearly there's work to do on our part for promoting the CCR, the Child Care Resource and Referral Consortium in New York City. I stepped into the role about 18 months ago during the pandemic and, or as folks were just returning to work from the pandemic. And it's been a learning journey for me. But PR and marketing for the consortium is a priority. Like I said, we do hospitals. I come out of a community organizing experience. I worked at the Fresh Air Fund, leading the community outreach work. And so, you know, I know that you're supposed to go to churches and every place where people are, grocery stores, laundromats, all of those places we need to be as our team returns to in-person engagements. That will happen more. But thank you for the question, and we will, and Boaz as well for saying like it was really hard. And once we connect you to the provider, there's a host of paperwork that still needs to be done, especially for center-based care in New York City. It's not like we've connected you and you start tomorrow. There's an application process that mirrors like the middle school, public school, middle school choice experience. So we're here to help families through that process as well. We don't just leave you at the door of referral. We help you through the application process as well.
I just wanted to quickly jump in just for a second, Tara, to say that the consortium is funded by the, as Tara told us, by the state. But their contract has been fairly static for a number of years, and that limits what the consortium can do. Yes, probably getting the word out is great, but there's only so many people that can be supported by that contract. So much outreach, so much different thing, and they're very creative. I have to say, very creative about how to use the resources that the state provides. But one of the other ways to sort of enhance that would be to get more state funding for not just New York City, but the whole network around the whole state.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Comments? Well, I think we're ready to say thank you very much to our speakers and attendees. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Gail for a final thank you, but it's been very interesting and the speakers have been incredible. So we're very grateful for their time and their contributions.
Thank you.
Peggy said it beautifully. Thank you all again, and we really appreciate everybody joining us. It was an extremely informative discussion and very informative expert presentations. So thank you, and everyone have a good evening.
Thank you.
you.
Have a good evening,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.